The hour is 11:30, so I call the meeting of the Legislative Committee to order. Roll call, please.
Member Champlin,
Here.
Member Childress,
Here.
Chair Desart,
Here.
Member Eckhoff,
Here.
Member Galassi,
Here.
Member Zay.
Here.
Thank you. I move to approve the minutes of the Legislative Committee from Tuesday, October 11th, 2022. Motion in a second. Do we need a roll call or just all in favor? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, that passes. Public comment. We do have public comment, and Jason is going to read it.
Just to reiterate, this is actually public comment that was submitted for the October 25th meeting of 2022. Per county board rules, we read whatever that is at the next meeting. So just wanted to real quick clarify that. First public comment came in from Rebecca Palsy, subject assault weapon ban. I am writing to support the proposed legislative banning the sale of assault weapons and high capacity magazines, requiring training for gun owners and implementing penalties for failure to store weapons safely. These are all common sense actions that can save lives. Thank you for taking action to protect all residents of DuPage County. End of that public comment. Next public comment is from Jamie Perry, subject ban of assault weapons. I am a first-time commenter in DuPage County. I urge every voter in the legislative committee to take action to keep our county safe from assault weapons. While I support the Second Amendment, I simply cannot get behind these assault weapons. There is too many lives in the hands of a single person. I strongly feel that these should not be in civilian personal arsenals. Vote to ban assault weapons. Thank you, Jamie Perry. End of that public comment. Next public comment from Norman Freeze, subject gun safety resolutions. Please ban assault weapons. Mass shootings are an epidemic. We need to take logical steps to stop the madness. Assault weapon bans is at least a SEO in the right direction. Assault weapon ban lowered shooting rates, which went back up when it expired. End of that public comment. Next public comment from Stephanie Freeze, gun safety resolution. As a mother and grandmother, I beg of you to please pass the assault weapon ban in DuPage County. No one needs to own these horrific weapons other than possibly the police to be able to counter an attack from someone who does have one. This is not a request to ban all weapons, simply a request to stop the insanity, use common sense, and put controls where they need to be. Is this needed for hunting? Ridiculous. Do you need to protect yourself? Absolutely not. Thank you. End of that public comment. Next public comment is from Stephanie Freeze, again, gun safety resolution. As a small business owner in DuPage County, I remember the terror when a Hinsdale resident was murdered. I was less than 2 miles away in my business. We were horrified to hear the news and see the police presence. We were asked not to leave the building. I never want to go through that fear again. Please stop the insanity and start putting controls back into place. We used to have a ban. It went into effect in 1994. The ban of selling assault weapons was lifted in 2004. We have faced a truly horrific number of deaths since. If we are going to be a country that is pro-life, please be pro-all lives. Thank you. End of that public comment. Next public comment from Nadine Bolger, subject ban assault weapons. Comment reads, I hope that the board will heed the request of many parents, including me, who wish to keep children safe in your community. Please vote to ban assault weaponry from our country. Thank you. End of that public comment. Next public comment from Maya Hansodi, subject matter gun safety resolution. My family of 5 lives in Elmhurst, and we demand an assault weapons ban in DuPage County, effective immediately, to help keep our children and communities safe from senseless gun violence. We moved to the suburbs from Chicago for a safer community, and this needs to happen to make our family feel safe. End of that public comment. Next public comment is from Sarah Peterson, subject matter gun safety resolution. As an elected leader of our community, you have the responsibility to each one of your constituents to take action and commit to ending gun violence. I'm asking that you please support an assault weapons and high capacity magazines ban through a county resolution. I know it's not always easy to reach out to your colleagues across the aisle, but I want you to know it's important to me. Our children are worth it. End of that public comment. Next public comments from Christina McCormick. No subject matter. Comment reads, I urge you to support the ban on assault weapons and high capacity magazines. I urge you as a mother, a spouse, a sibling, a daughter, and a friend, an instrument that can kill many people in a short amount of time should have no legal place in our state. End of that public comment. Next public comments from Kristen Wicklund, subject matter assault weapons ban. I am writing with an urgent request that you support an assault weapons and high capacity magazine ban through a county resolution. Please also support Illinois House Bill 552, which mandates safe firearm storage, as well as FOID card reforms and mandate training related to the sale and possession of firearms. It is the past time for our legislators to take action to ensure that DuPage County residents can move safely through public spaces and attend large gatherings with confidence that they will not become a victim of another mass shooting. As a parent of young children, it is of the utmost importance to me that you all work together to pass legislation that will keep our children and our community safer. Thank you for the support. End of that public comment. Next public comment from Helen Griffin, no subject matter. The comment reads, I am urging you all to support the resolution to ban assault weapons. There is no place for assault weapons in our community. We need safety for our families, especially our children. End of that public comment. Last public comment is from Pooja Patel, subject matter assault weapons ban. Dear board members, please vote in favor of an assault weapon and high capacity magazine ban for our county. As an elected leader of our community, we look to you in helping us to keep our children and families safe. Firearms are now the #1 cause of death in children's ages 1 to 19. The time for thoughts and prayers is over. Thank you for consideration. That's the end of that comment and the end of public comment as submitted.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. As far as Chairwoman's remarks, I just want to welcome you all, committee members and non-committee members, for attending today. Really appreciate it. As you know, DuPage County is not a legislative body. We cannot make laws, but we are one of the few of Illinois' 102 counties that has that affords lobbyists. So we've got a federal lobbyist, Bill Riney, and then 2 state lobbyists. One of whom is on with us today, Chip Hume, welcome. But we have state lobbyists who we can direct to facilitate bills and laws that affect DuPage County. So that's where we stand. And our relationship with our legislators is so important. As I said during the county board meeting, this year alone, we got $300,000 from U.S. Senator Dick Durbin for the York Township Water Improvement Project, $1.5 million from Congressman Gaston for preliminary engineering of the East Branch of the DuPage River Trail, and another $1 million from Congressman Gaston to support the construction of the Health Department's Central Receiving Center. So that's why our relationship with our legislators is so important. And with that, I move to approve, and then we can have discussion, the adoption of the county's 2023 state legislative program. All in favor? Aye.
Point discussion.
Oh, discussion for sure. All right, so now the discussion.
Good
And
try,
with that,
Madam Chair.
okay, we're done. No, I'm just joking. And with that, I'll turn it over to Cheryl Marquet, who will outline our legislative priorities and kind of discuss which department heads put forth the recommendations.
So I'm working off what's in your packet, the overview of the state priorities. I will work with our staff on a federal agenda for probably in February. But I just want you to know, this is sort of a policy document that just helps our lobbyists and myself, who work with them on a daily basis, set some goals for this session. As individual bills are introduced, we will have committee meetings where I have 10, 20 bills at a time for the committee to support or oppose. I
With
send those
actual
out
bill
in advance.
numbers.
Right,
This
with
does
actual
not
bill
have
numbers.
right.
A lot of these are just concepts that have not been introduced in a legislation yet, but it's more of a working document that we amend frequently to meet the needs, because we don't know right now what will be, what will be introduced during the legislative session that starts Wednesday. But this is basically a list that either members have put forth or department heads have put forth. So I'll just run through it really briefly, and feel free to ask any questions. So working off this first sheet, the gun violence prevention. As many of you know, last fall, the county board did vote after the Highland Park mayor came and presented a county board to support an assault weapons ban, to limit the number of magazines, to limit the sale, and also to strengthen the FOID card and the red flag laws from 6 months to a year. It looks like the House today at noon when they come in, and Chip can also give an update on this, our lobbyist will approve the Senate bill that was sent over last night. So if that occurs, I will drop this one from the agenda that you'll be voting on in 2 weeks at county board. Our transit system, I don't know if any members are aware, last session, the General Assembly passed a very comprehensive bill requiring CMAP, which is our Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. It's our planning organization, to spend an entire year with 3 different subcommittees looking at the future of transit. As you know, our worlds have changed since COVID. People aren't taking a train from Glen Ellen to Chicago to the extent they were in the past, and we need to reimagine our transit system. Due to COVID and the decreasing, of course, ridership fees and other funding, majority of our transit agencies spent their federal CARES Act and ARPA money to sustain operations, not even to make investments in our infrastructure. So we still have that issue out there. And the RTA has let us know that in a couple of years, there's going to be a $730 million operational deficit. So Chris Schneider, our Director of Transportation, is very engaged in these conversations, as I'm sure Transportation Chair Ozog will. But we are hoping not to actually see any legislation this year, because we are supposed to wait for this larger package to be reintroduced next year. So Chris will be talking about that more in transportation.
Cheryl, may I ask, You said there's 3 subcommittees. Do we have anybody sitting on these subcommittees in DuPage County?
The only person is former Chairman Cronin is on the finance.
How we pay for it.
But there's not a lot of suburban representation. We have a list, or Chris has a list he could probably send, but
There's 3 subcommittees, how we pay for it, what we imagine it to be, and how to implement it. Terms of what I'll just be blunt, suburban, college suburban representatives. There's one from DuPage, former Chairman Cronin. There is a representative from Will County, and there's a representative from Lake County. Each committee is made up of about 12 people. Many of everybody else is essentially east of 294.
Will that change then because Chairman Cronin's not here anymore and Chairman Conroy will take it, or?
So specifically, the legislation, the transit agencies are not involved, and they were very specific on who was to be in on these committees. So essentially, there are no elected officials on this committee.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Okay. Thank you.
They are looking for the endorsement. At the end of the day, CMAP is going to prepare this report to the General Assembly, January 2024 with recommendations. And so they will be looking at, this will move through the CMAP. So I sit on the Transportation Committee, Chair Conroy sits on the Policy Committee, and then we have a board representative as well. So that will move through that committee structure. So at the end of the day, they will be looking for a consensus endorsement of the final report, and that will come from the local agencies and state agencies and implementers.
the next issue is mental health infrastructure. Mental health has long been expanding access to mental health treatment has long been a priority of the board. It's certainly a priority of Chair Conroy. So we don't know all the bills that will be reintroduced introduced right now, but a couple of issues the health department asked us to focus on would be to increase the Medicaid reimbursement rate for intervention and mobile crisis responses, and also to develop a Medicaid rate for overnight stays. Our mental health center across the street, the Community Mental Health Center, does have 12 beds for crisis. And so funding that would be an important goal this session. But what Jason and I, who have worked with the health department a lot on this issue, have found that the recruitment of social workers, clinical therapists, all the different fields, it is really difficult to recruit. So we would urge the General Assembly to put together some type of program that would incentivize, whether it's student loans or other incentives, to stay in Illinois and practice to help beef up that pool of potential social workers that are needed to help expand treatment options. The Emergency Telephone System Act, Member Schwarzy is the chair of that body. Every 3 years, the fee that you see on your phone bill, it's the 911 wireless surcharge fee. It's $1.50 right now. It helps fund our emergency response system here in DuPage County. A big priority 3 years ago, and a way to get these funds from the state, there's a distribution model here. You had to consolidate. So probably 5 years ago, DuPage County had 19 PSAPs, public safety answering points, which are basically a dispatch center. Thanks to Linda Zerwin, members of the ETSB board, the county board, we have now got that down to 2, which is DUCOM and ACDC, not the rock band. It is Addison Consolidated Dispatch Service Center. And ACDC also does our 211 calls at night. But this is an important issue that Linda Zerwin will be working on to make sure this surcharge gets extended so we can fund our 911 operations, that other counties continue to consolidate, because if you don't consolidate, you're paying for a lot of equipment and redundancy that you don't need in the system. So that's an important goal. And also the federal government recently changed how the surcharge monies could be used to narrow the focus, which was actually a positive step.
Can I just insert real quick that the new members, I would recommend that you go tour DuCom. It's really a neat place to see, and they do amazing things there with very few resources.
Was that on the list, Jason, to tour DuCom?
Oh,
it was.
Yes, it is on the.
This is right across the street, you're right.
Yeah,
so-
yeah,
ACDC is also on the list.
Oh, good.
good.
Yeah, both.
Those are really great
We'll
facilities.
coordinate accordingly.
The next item, I don't know if the new members are aware, the local government distributed fund That is a portion of the income tax that municipalities and counties receive. Years ago, when they first put on the statewide income tax, and was 1969, I believe, local governments were supposed to get 10%. Over time, that amount's been whittled down. The state takes a portion whenever they have a budget hole. Last year, our DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference, this is their #1 priority. I don't know, they're having a legislative night that's coming up. I'd encourage you all to attend that meeting. But their #1 goal is to get this back to 10%. Last year, they did raise it to 6.16%, but we're not at 10 yet, and it's going to go back to 6.06% this year. But it's a way, there was an agreement that municipalities and counties would not institute their own income tax, which is why they agreed to the LGDF share. And so getting it back to that 10%, it's been on our agenda, I think, the 20 years I've been here, and we keep working towards that. But that's what that is. We always have every year a very large.
Quick
Oh, sure.
question. So does that also include then the online sales tax of any sort, or no? That's just
income tax.
basically population.
This is just
tax,
income tax.
Just
Right,
population
income tax,
driven.
right.
Okay, so we don't have any mechanism for that.
We
other-
do get the online sales tax through that agreement that went through, and it became effective January 1 of 2021 was the first time we started to get internet sales tax. And that's when our sales tax exploded, because before that, we did not get a share.
We didn't.
And that was probably one of our biggest legislative successes in Springfield. It was right when the Illinois State Association of Counties, that was formed 3 or 4 years ago, because you probably are familiar with the Illinois Municipal League. We never had a group like that. That's why we all had to have our own lobbyists for so many years. But it was every man for himself, and it wasn't coordinated. Now we have this Illinois State Association of Counties that's continuing to grow. Joe McCoy, who actually came from IML, is our executive director. And that was the first thing we got done, was getting a portion of that online sales tax, which it's exceeded all of our expectations in terms of revenue.
Perfect timing with COVID. Everybody was Amazon.
Correct. When they first said it, they're like, Cheryl, this isn't important. I'm like, I think it is. And it turned out to be a huge revenue source for the county, right? It is not home rule, which we'll discuss a lot. Everyone in Springfield thinks we're home rule. I don't know how many times I have to explain, because it's such a large county, and it's hard to explain that a municipality with 25,000 residents is home rule, but not a county with 926,000 people. But you don't have as many tools as a board, which is why we're always fighting for a stormwater utility or hotel motel tax or different mechanisms, because we don't have that ability to raise revenue that home rule entities do have. Regarding the environment, we have a very active environmental committee. They are very interested. Joy Hins is our environmental coordinator. There will be a lot of bills introduced on this topic during session. We just highlighted a few. The environmental committee has been very involved in the extended producer responsibility policy. That is a whole way, and I put a couple of one-pagers in your packet that Joy gave me. It is a way to shift the cost of recycling off of residents all onto manufacturers. So it is a very big comprehensive package. This does not endorse this by voting for this today, but it just makes it a goal to work with manufacturers, the business community, to look at how we can recycle more of the packaging and paper products that they produce. Another big issue has been carpet. Joy has worked on that. Lake County has spearheaded that for many years, trying to recycle or have a statewide carpet program that's similar to, batteries or tires or electronics, different other items that we recycle, because that does take up a big portion of our landfills. And also latex paint. The county used to have a latex paint program. We don't anymore, but that's important as well. Member Garcia has brought up electric vehicles quite a bit. I don't know, Chip will probably give us an update on that. We're going to try to develop a program in Springfield during the lame duck to give some more incentives to manufacturers of electric vehicles. But that is a work in progress as the state and federal government are building the infrastructure that's necessary.
Cheryl, can I ask, Madam Chair, can I ask, this EPR, I don't understand it. Maybe somebody can give me, we're basically taking the responsibility of the individual of recycling and putting it on the manufacturer completely. So now a dozen eggs is not gonna be $6, it's gonna be $10 because they have to come up with a recycled package for it. Ultimately, this is gonna come back, the manufacturer is just gonna push it back onto the consumers. And I don't understand, that for years, we've got all these recycling programs where, hey, we're teaching our kids to recycle, we're teaching all this, we have all this recycling stuff. Now we're gonna just go and put it on the manufacturer and say, hey, by the way, you need to produce it, even though it might not be able to. I don't know how food producers are gonna figure out how to get something that would be recyclable. You know, we can't use styrofoam, we can't use anything else. I mean, this is just gonna drive the costs onto business. We're already strapped as it is. And you know what they're gonna do? They're gonna push it onto the consumer, which is ultimately gonna hurt our people. So I don't understand this, why all of a sudden it's a change. And if you produce something, you're gonna have to, you know, do this. And I see our logos on the top. Is this something we've been promoting already?
We have been part of a core group with Lake County, City of Chicago, the Solid Waste Agency of Northern Cook County, working on this legislation. Environmental Committee has been very active in this.
But the board hasn't ultimately given approval.
The board is not correct. So to address your question about cost, there have been multiple studies that due to the ginormous volume of the packaging and the slight cost on each packaging, that it actually doesn't have a consumer impact. We actually have the Product Stewardship Institute should be coming out with a fact sheet to that effect here shortly. As far as it being a new concept, there's actually 40 countries in the world that have already pursued packaging, extended producer responsibility. And it's not just about recycling and shifting the cost from the resident to the brand manufacturer. It's actually about providing recycling access to everyone throughout the state of Illinois. Multifamily homes, governments, park districts. There are large facets throughout the state of Illinois who don't have access to recycling. They don't have a drop-off center. They don't have curbside. There are communities in Cook County that don't have access to recycling. So it is about trying to capture recycling throughout the state and also encourage those manufacturers to come up with packaging that actually is recyclable. We sat in a meeting a couple months ago where the recycling facility actually explained to us that there's 24 different types of plastic, that are typically, put through their system. They can recycle 4. So it's about going back to those manufacturers and saying, look, you need to really use what's recyclable. We've been charged by the state of Illinois to increase our recycling rates. We are responsible for our solid waste management plan. So this is part of that, to say enough is enough. Give us things that are recyclable, reusable, stop landfilling. And I'm happy to share the cost sheet with you when we do get that from the Product Stewardship Institute.
Yeah, it says here, that this is going to require companies to pay for recycling programs for their packaging and paper products. And then the dues cover 100% of the cost to provide convenient official recycling services statewide. So these businesses are going to have to pay 100% for this program.
That's correct. And the
What kind of costs would there be on this?
And the PRO, the actual manufacturers, are creating the organization. They are going to dictate those fees. We're not involved in that. Illinois EPA is not involved in that. The manufacturers will decide the percentages and what actually will, what brand owners will pay.
Has anybody talked to the Illinois Manufacturing Association about this?
Yes, IMA is one of the stakeholders. They are aware. We are actually working with the Illinois Retail Merchants Association on the bill as well. We've been talking to the Flexible Packaging Association, the Recycling Partnership, the Illinois Environmental Council. So we've been holding stakeholder meetings for the last 12 months.
And we're hearing about it now.
We've been talking with the Environmental Committee about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the Environmental Committee was talking about it. But one of the things we did talk about at the Environmental Committee meeting, Chairman, if I can speak,
Sure, of course.
was the fact that we actually haven't educated our homeowners and our business owners, and that's where it's really been lacking, where we haven't even offered a sticker on recycled bins, where people know what they can put in the recycle bin versus put in the other one, because now everything is just, people just guess as to what they think can be recycled and what can't. And so that is like the biggest footprint there is, right? Is people who are using the product and identifying what's recyclable and what isn't recyclable to really make a dent in this type of effort, in my opinion. The other thing is also, though, we talk about the electric vehicles and the charging stations, which is really awesome. We've got a bunch of them in my area. However, the difficulty for the city is our transformers. So our transformers in a lot of communities, probably a lot of unincorporated areas, are old transformers. When you start adapting and increasing the electric vehicle content within that community, those transformers aren't going to cover it. They're not going to hold that capacity, and it's just going to be a waste of time and a waste of energy. So while we're looking at these legislative initiatives, we need to be cautious that, yes, electric vehicles, okay, but how does that affect the overall electric system? And will it taxi it so much that it's not even going to be an effective legislative issue? The other thing is too, on the electric vehicle aspect of it, you know, we've already know that the batteries have a contamination level and that they're lifelong contamination. So then the next question is, okay, if we're going to transition and keep going into that direction, how are we going to handle that, which is an environmental issue also. I don't have a solution. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yes.
I agree with my counterpart, is that a big piece of that is education when it comes to the recycling. Most people have no clue. I know I don't. We read it. And it's almost like it's plastic, it's going to go here. If it's not plastic, it's going to go there. And if we're contributing to that, we need to kind of do a full court press on educating the community as to how we're going to handle recycling. If we could do that, that's going to go a long way, first of all. And then second of all, we really, I just think that then it would kind of either manufacturers would know that to use this or not use it. I don't think they'll have to develop it because it's available already. It's just a matter of we need to know what we're going to do with it, because I don't. You know, it's plastic, we throw it over here, and then I could be damaging the environment just as bad by putting it in the recycle, because it still has got to be cleaned up and all of that. And the next question I have is finally is, if I put some plastic that should go into the landfill, okay, how long does it stay in that landfill?
Wow, that's a good question.
Because you're saying don't recycle it, so it's gonna go in the landfill. Will it stay in there 50 years, 100 years, or how long? So what, you know,
And you're quite right. It depends on the plastic, and yes, it could be 50 years, it could be 100 years, it could be 200 years.
so what are
To
we
be
getting?
determined,
Right, what are we
based
getting?
on the actual specific landfill, so unfortunately can't answer that, but I did, if it's okay, Chair DuPage, as far as education goes, I did want to address that. The county's had a contract with Scarce for decades to do outreach and education. The county itself is part of an Illinois recycling contamination task force. We've actually completed 2 videos in the last couple of years where we are really trying our best to get the word out. We're trying to work with the recycling companies as well for the labeling. And then back to the packaging, that legislation that may get introduced. There actually is a portion of that funding that will get allocated to education and outreach. So we would have an opportunity to get some funding to continue the outreach and expand it.
Member Evans, I think, was next with a comment.
Yeah,
And
and
then
then
we'll
we'll
go
say
to
that this
okay.
discussion is a testament to how there should be support for the, I can't remember the something RP, this program, because, you know, the onus shouldn't be on like trying to read a recycle bin to see if something belongs in there. It should be on the package that you're about to throw away. So that onus belongs on the manufacturer. It's not on, you know, whoever ends up with it in their trash. And by the way, anytime you contaminate, you put something that doesn't belong in the recycle bin in there, they probably have to throw the whole thing out into the landfill. So, there's a lot of education, but so much of it depends on the initial, what should I throw away? What belongs in the trash and what belongs in the bin? It should be on the packaging.
Member Guston?
And I agree with you. A lot of packaging does already have a recycle image on it when the company is using that and knows about it. So I'm not sure 100% of that has to go on a company. However, putting a sticker in the recycle hood of the recycle bin is usually an immediate, yeah, this goes in here, this goes in there. And I've been trying to push that at the city, which is just a sticker forever. And it's like pulling teeth. So we can get that done at the county level. That would make me happy. Plus, if you communicate with the garbage services like Root and the others and say, hey, there's these stickers, share them with people or whatever to get them on their garbage things. And that goes even another step further because that's what they do for a living.
Which kind of goes in line with Member Zay was saying, is that instead of sticking it on the manufacturing, maybe we should be attacking through education stickers, whatever we need to do, rather than passing that cost on. Eventually, we may have to, but let's figure out what we need to do so everybody's singing off the same sheet of music first.
Excellent discussion. Anybody else? Yes, Member.
I just had a question. I mean, manufacturers, a lot of them put recycle this or that, but every municipality has their own contract with a hauler. And not all haulers take things that manufacturers tell us are recyclable, do they?
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, you are correct. So there is yes. So, and we have been working on a more consistent statewide list, and that is another advantage of the EPR program is there would be a statewide list. Here's what is recyclable throughout the state of Illinois, no matter where you are. If you're in Carroll Spring or if you're in Westmont, both programs would take
So if
these
you make the
basic-
manufacturer right now, today, if you make the manufacturer put recycle on their containers, it's just gonna confuse people because there's gonna be a list that says this can't go in, but here's my statement from the manufacturer, it can't go in. And then.
Well, and that's the benefit. Well, and back to the triangle. So just so we're clear, that triangle talks about what plastic it is. It does not say whether it's recyclable or not. So be cautious and always look at what's accepted in your specific program. There's many things you buy, the plastic, shrink wrap and things like that, that cannot be recycled in your curbside bin, may or may not have a drop-off program. So that's part of this too, is to stop manufacturers from creating packaging that cannot be recycled, no matter where you are in the state. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's a lot more complicated than just putting a recycle sign on some box or some package.
On the bins. And to your point, Member Guston, as part of the task force, we have been talking about the labels on the bins. I know I live in Lisle and I have a sticker on my bin. Our hauler is LRS. I'm not sure if the rest of them do. I will say that some of the waste haulers are very hesitant to do that because they like to reserve the right to change things, on a whim. Whether that's valid or not, I don't know. But that your point has been talked about at the task force.
Sure. And just the last few ones, I know we're short on time. Member Chaplin had brought forth an act in Illinois, child tax credit. The federal government has one, and 12 states also have one. It's just a way that you provide a monthly financial benefit to families below the poverty line. There's a lot of different ways you could structure it. We didn't get into that here, but that's something we'll encourage our legislators to work for. And then the last two items, expand affordable housing. Mary Keating, our community services director, she is part of a NACO, National Association of Counties Affordable Housing Task Force. She's very involved in the issue. Fortunately, under the ARPA, we received I think $27 million for rental subsidy. We work very close with IDA, the Illinois Housing Development Authority, which Member Tornator is actually a member of. So sometimes it's legislation, sometimes it's appropriations, but the county board has been very supportive of trying to expand the number of affordable housing units and also looking at how we can prevent homelessness. And I attached to this packet a 97-page report that the state did last fall that I think it was on page 66 and 67, had some really solid recommendations that we'll probably see in legislation, which we'll, bring forward to the committee as that is introduced. And finally, I don't know if many of you were aware, in January of 2019, we had that very disastrous kennel fire in West Chicago. Not only were a number of our first responders injured, but it claimed the life of 29 dogs. State Attorney Berlin is going to put forth again this year some legislation that will provide some meaningful penalties. The owner of this facility was cited for mistreatment of animals, yet he was still allowed to keep animals in his care. And there was no penalty with regard to, future possession of animals. So he is actually his assistant state's attorney, I forgot her name. She came and
She was
presented,
wonderful.
she wanted,
Alyssa Robolet.
Yes,
thank you. She
yes,
won
yes.
a national award for her work.
Yeah.
And so he's going to be reintroducing that legislation again, that I'll bring forth to the committee.
So as you can tell, these are just this is an overview of some of our legislative priorities. And as we get bill numbers, we can approve specific bills. There's one that Mark Ayers from the Humane Society, the Illinois Humane Society, wants us to champion that some of the puppy mill sellers are getting around the puppy mill ban by using some other language, and they want to firm up that language. I know Pete Giussiani wants us to champion Breeze Law, a bill about autism, and you had a couple of ideas. Is your hand raised?
It is, but
Oh.
go ahead, finish.
A couple of- So we also, in addition to this overview, we also want to champion some specific bills into laws, and we'll find out more when would that be? Next
February,
February,
they start introducing bills.
Member Chaplin?
Thank you, Chair to start. Nice, strong legislative agenda. The one thing that I noticed that we don't have on here that I think is important to add is tourism and economic development. Promote, we have that great new economic development partnership, but I still think it's always a good thing that our legislators are working on. And, promoting tourism, I know our what is it, the CVBD, Visitors Bureau, there always seem to be low on funds. So, somehow finding funding mechanisms for them. But I just think it's good to put in there, supporting, tourism and show how to do the wording for that.
Sure.
Perfect, we can work on that. But I think it's important to add it in for our final vote.
Member Shoulders?
Yeah, I want to jump back to expand affordable housing.
Okay.
Is there a mechanism in here to study the relationship between homelessness and our veterans? Because I just think it's a travesty that you go and you join the military, you spend time overseas, whatever, you come back with all sorts of mental issues, and then you end up homeless on the streets. That's just not something, it's just something that has always bothered me
I agree with you 100%. And in fact, I've been championing for the last couple of years, and Chairman Cronin said no. But I would love to see this county have an affordable housing committee that is dedicated to that exact issue. And I also serve, for the past couple of years, I serve on the DuPage Housing Authority. So I'm on that board as well. So affordable housing is a huge passion of mine too. And I'd like us as elected officials to stop talking about it and start doing something about it, because that's what we're not doing.
You come in, whatever you
And
say.
Liz and I have talked about that for 2 years as well. We want an affordable housing committee to stop talking about it and start doing something about it. And getting not just members of the board, but also stakeholders from the DuPage Housing Authority and other, entities from the community. I have to go to Member Eckhoff first. I'm sorry, Member
I
Eckhoff.
was gonna talk about something different if they're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, can I
Well,
pipe it
Member
on?
Guston was first.
Okay.
And I agree. We had 2 years of identifying affordable housing in Naperville. And the difficulty is the definition of affordable. Because HUD has a certain dollar figure that they do a regional analysis of what that affordable number is. And then IDA has their own number of what affordable is, and they don't take out the real estate taxes. So any community that has a higher real estate tax bill will always be behind on this affordable spectrum. So there may be now an opportunity for the county to kind of look at more customization as to, because every area has a different real estate tax bill. And it's part of their calculations. Now, in talking with HUD through these years and identifying how Naperville could hone in on what's affordable for them, they're flexible with that number, because if you keep it directly to HUD and IDA's number, if the price of a parcel is 300,000 and the affordable dollar number is 350,000, you're never going to build a house for $50,000. Now with inflation, the cost of lumber, the cost of labor, and everything else going up, that number that IDA has and the number that HUD has is not going to be able to expand the housing inventory because it's just not financially capable. So having our own kind of customized type of county, maybe even every community has their own affordable housing number, will actually expand the affordability concept. So we spend a lot of years on it, and if I can help in any way, let me know.
And those
that's
numbers
just-
vary from municipality to municipality
do.
too, because looking at the DHA charts, you know, a affordable housing could be for a 2-bedroom apartment, so we're talking apples and apples, could be $1,400 in Lamont, but it could be $1,600 in Naperville, you know.
And
those
why?
numbers
Because
are-
those owners' real estate taxes are higher.
That's right.
So they're gonna charge more. So there's a lot of moving parts to it, but I think we can get through it and try to figure out what would best suit people.
That's what we need a committee. Member Chaplin.
Thank you. So, I was just looking, this Illinois homeless, plan to prevent and end homelessness from this committee, that was in our packet. They do touch on veterans, so homeless veterans, so, that's a good thing. And DuPage County, and I think Cheryl, I was gonna look up the email, but, we have been working on homelessness and affordable housing for a long, long time. In fact, I had some documents sent to me from Paul Haas in 2009. There was a study. We have, I think we have a pretty good basic outline of, how we can approach this. It's just the will of the board. Does the board want, is this something the board wants to do, right? So I think, Don, I was going to talk with Chair Conroy about this, but maybe Paul Haas coming in one day and just presenting to finance the second hour about what we've done.
Mary Keating had,
Very right, and we could,
some things to issue.
we could, maybe kind of outline what we've done, where we are, for the new members and for even, the older members that don't know, but I know there's been a lot of groundwork done, a lot of work in the consortium here.
Right, and affordable housing is
Hard.
I mean, a lot of things to a lot of people. There's different components. There's the development side, there's the financing side, there's the zoning side. So I think that the challenge here at DuPage, there is a lot going on. It's housed in a couple of different committees. The Community Development Commission is specifically charged with managing the funds we get from HUD for the creation of affordable housing. The CDC is made up of half county board members and half municipal members. That funnels up into human services. And then on the development side, obviously the unincorporated areas, that's where we have control, zoning control. I do want to specifically address homeless veterans. So we serve as my department serves as the lead entity for the DuPage County Homeless Continuum of Care, which is a community-based coordinated organization representing organizations across the spectrum of housing services. So we have a very good handle on the number of individuals who are homeless in DuPage County, as well as sort of what their circumstances are and what's the best intervention from them. I am proud to say we have a very, very, very low number of homeless veterans in DuPage County. We also have probably the finest homeless veteran services organization in the state, which is Midwest Shelter for Homeless Veterans, was founded here in Wheaton. Bob Adams, the founder, I was talking to him a couple of weeks ago. he told me that Midwest Shelter is actually working with 50% of all of the homeless veterans in the entire state. Because they have facilities here in DuPage County, but they also have funding where they're assisting veterans throughout the Collier County. So
And that's located in Wheaton, you said?
it's located in downtown Wheaton, yeah. I would be happy to get you connected to them. It's an organization that at the continuum level and at the county level through our HUD funds, we've been supporting literally since its inception. So it's absolutely on our radar. It's a population that obviously we are also concerned about. And I'm proud to tout the numbers, the low number that we have.
Thank you, Mary. I just wanted to say, Member Childress, that, I mean, I've had a passion for this for years. And before COVID, I did these things called community conversations where I had panel discussions on various topics. And my very first one was in Naperville about affordable housing. And our panel was fantastic. It was really well received. And a lot of people have this concept of affordable housing looking like Brady Green, but some of these developments are beautiful and would fit. The purpose of affordable housing is to fit into any neighborhood flawlessly. Anything
I
else
agree.
about affordable housing?
That's
Remember
one of the
Echo
things I
had
was gonna
something
talk
else?
about. I'll just be brief because I know everyone's got to go somewhere, but right now I couldn't vote for this agenda because there's some details I think are missing that need to be inserted into it regarding the mental health. We're a county that's passing mental health boards at the township level. And I think there needs to be some coordination between the county mental health services and the 708 boards. Which right now, if one went into every township, we'd have 81 people on mental health boards, which are in 9 township administrations administering mental health through those townships, which I think is a waste of money. And I think there's a better way to coordinate that. And I think if you're going to talk about mental health legislation, there should be some discussion about that. The child care credit, there's no details in terms of how much. There's no work incentive. I don't know what the cost would be. And I just read an article in the Daily Herald going over here that it's estimated that 12% of the people are in poverty in the United States. And maybe this article is totally wrong. But if people applied for existing benefits through the government, that number falls from 12 to 2. Because there's so much that you're able to get. Expand affordable housing. As you said, no one's defined it. I was on a committee from I know this is gonna date me, I want to hear about how old I am. But from 1988 to 1996 with an individual by the name of Bob Christ. And we started meeting at Golden Bear and Schmally and Carroll Stream and ended up at the facilities at Wheaton College. And affordable housing was a big issue back then. People couldn't define it. I don't think we're defining it now. But it should be usually a percentage of the net income of the people living in the house. We had a proposal come into Wheaton to put in some affordable housing. And the biggest cost with housing is the cost of the property. So if you're a municipality or you're a county, you change your zoning laws to go from 50 feet to 40 feet because that makes it smaller. And we were going to do that in a particular neighborhood, sort of like what you said, to try and make it fit in so it would be perfect. Oh my God, everybody and their brother came out to protest that one. So that didn't go too far. And I would like to say regarding the homelessness, I talked to Mary a little bit about this before because it's hard to get through in one night. I was on the HHA committee a long time ago, and I was talking about, I think we need a place in DuPage County where everybody can be safe, everybody can have a place to sleep, and everybody can get fed. But Mary, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's lots of people that we reach out to that turn down the services that we provide. They don't want to be in a facility. And I see a lot of them, the same people around Wheaton and Glen Ellen all the time. So I think we should work on some of these ideas, and maybe I could vote for it later, but I can't do that right now.
Thank you for that. Member Chaplin?
Yes, so I'm going to agree with Member Eckhoff on one point. Yeah, I mean, we're having a lot of bipartisan here. I love it. So the mental health boards. I agree. I don't think having every township with a mental health board is the best way to do it. DeKalb County has their own mental health board.
We can opt out and do it countywide, but I've suggested that to the township people and.
You know, if we work with our, you know, because DeKalb County Mental Health Board funds services for DeKalb County residents who suffer from or at risk of developing mental or substance abuse disorders. So, you know, and I think we have a great Board of Health here. I think we have the experts here. You know, I kind of agree that, you know, having all these off townships with these mental health boards maybe isn't the best way to do it. And from what I understand, the mental health boards too are more of a referral mechanism. So they're referring people out to places to get the help. So, you know, I just whispering to Cheryl, like, is there any way that the county, we could, you know, ask our legislators to give us the ability to have a county-wide mental health
We have the
board, just
ability
like
already, but
DeKalb?
all the townships would have to dissolve what they've already got. And as soon as you start talking about that, then I've already talked to township people about it. Their feeling is, here comes the county, they want to control everything, blah, 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 blah. So I'd like to have a way to keep the townships involved because they've got the taxing mechanism right now.
Well, we could get the taxing mechanism though.
I
through the
thought
state.
Will County did a
They
referendum. on
did,
a
Will
county.
County as well, and Will County has just did, you know, I really think that county-wide is the way to go with this, but I don't know if it's something you want to put in our agenda that we can work towards that if the committee agrees. But I'm kind of uncomfortable too with all these, you know, everybody's getting a different level and we have the experts right here. So,
Anybody else? I would like to hear, member Chair.
This may sound crazy, but I'm just gonna ask the question, is there a difference between mental health in Naperville versus Bloomingdale?
Oh, they're much different from Bloomingdale, if you knew anyone else.
I mean, mental health is mental health, and we have all these different.
I brought that up to the people who are running the 708s right now, and they're like, yes, we need a 708 board in every township because every township's different. And I said, well, I could find you 5 spots in Whedon that are different. But they didn't, I'm just very leery of cutting the townships out because, like I said, they think that here comes the big county to take over and tell us what to do. So I like them. They've got the taxing mechanism. They could appoint maybe 1 person each township to a board, so you only have 9 instead of 81. But
Trying to get 81 people to agree
Can
on
I
anything.
just ask the Mary Keating, and we don't do mental health. These are recommendations from the Board of Health. The Board of Health has their own board and their own lobbyists as well. So I don't know, we could put 708 in here, but this is just a guidance document. I don't want to overthink.
That's right.
This is, I can't put every single thing in here. It's got to be more broad.
Yeah.
But you need to talk to Sam, who's president of the Board of Health. I just don't know how to put that in here. I don't know that it's
Right.
appropriate because it's not, we don't deliver mental health. The Board of Health does.
This is just an umbrella of
Of
ideas.
county government operations that's under your control here. Yeah.
I think it's.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to hear what Chip has to say
Right.
because we've been talking for
Probably
a
gonna
long
hang
time. Chip, thank you for holding on for so long. For our new board members, Chip Hume is one of our state lobbyists. He's done great work for us regarding a lot of things. Our big win last year was the banning of puppy mills at the state level. Chip, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and congratulations to all the newly elected members, and also congratulations to all of you who have been reelected, and congratulations to all the new members to the Legislative Committee. I will preface, I have a lot to go over. I will try to be very brief. I know you've all had a very long day, but thorough. We all speak a kind of a different language, Cheryl will attest to, on the legislative side. So if there's anything I go through that you don't understand, or I say too quickly, feel free at the end to stop me, and I'd be happy to explain anything. So where we are today in the General Assembly, we are in the waning hours of the 102nd General Assembly. Each General Assembly is 2 years in duration. And we are in what they call lame duck session. So those are session days that are post veto session and post an election. So there are a large number of folks who are serving down here who will not be in office in the next General Assembly. So a quick lame duck update, and then I'll go through some of the things we're looking for in the new General Assembly, some changes, and a little tiny bit about our process, how Cheryl and I interact with you, and kind of our day-to-day kind of operations. So again, thanks for having me. So final days of lame duck here, there's quite a bit going on. The governor and all the constitutional officers were inaugurated yesterday. New General Assembly will be inaugurated tomorrow. The General Assembly has been very busy in this lame duck session. I'll hit on a couple key points that we've been working on. I'm sure some of them you have seen in the news. Number one, the Veterans Assistance Bill, House Bill 2369. Cheryl and I have been working with the Attorney General's office pretty substantially on this issue, with our state's attorney as well, for the past few months. It's a trailer bill to the Veterans Assistance Commission bill. It passed the Senate and is over on concurrence in the House. So if the House concurs, it will be sent to the governor's desk. There was some changes to what we refer to as the BIMP, the Budget Implementation Bill, Senate Bill 1720. It is a two-part budgeting process here in the state. There are two vehicles that make up the budget. One is the BIMP, which is the Budget Implementation Bill that gives all the authorizations and the mechanisms, and the other is the Appropriation Bill. That's the traditional budget bill where it has line item line item numbers of how much money goes into what fund and whatnot. So we cleaned up the BIMP a little bit here in veto session. Notably to us, and most, I think, exciting to us, is there was a sweep of the 911 wireless surcharge fund in the initial BIMP to set up funding for the 988 crisis intervention line. That's been restored in this BIMP because the state received substantial federal funding for 988. So Linda Zerwin, who does a great job, was very, very happy with that. A couple other notable pieces in that BIMP. I think they put $835 million, I may be off by a couple million here or there, into the state's rainy day fund, which just back 5-6 years ago had like $60,000 in it. And then also they made the initial down payment into Governor Pritzker's business attraction fund. They put $400 million into a $1 billion goal. That, I think, is some of what you're seeing when we talk about electric vehicle manufacturers. Those are business incentives to try to drive business from out of state into Illinois. So obviously the state's in a little better financial position these days with some of these issues. But the reason you may have actually heard about the BIMP is because the only part that really made the news was the fact that it included pay raises for General Assembly members, state constitutional officers, as well as, I believe, agency directors throughout the state of Illinois. So if you saw that come across your screen, that is probably why. House Bill 4412 is a bill that we've been supporting ISACO with. We work collaboratively with ISACO on issues that affect all counties equally. And then there are some issues that affect really just us, where we take them on ourselves. And there are other issues that affect us kind of equally, which we backfill ISACO's position and help them lobby. This is one that probably didn't affect us as much as many other ISACO County era members, but we were trying to be helpful with. The states had an issue with large wind and solar facilities, generally in central and southern Illinois, with counties imposing what they would call unreasonable zoning conditions to prevent the large solar and wind farms. So this bill would eliminate local authority and create a statewide zoning standard for these large wind and solar farms. Obviously, we don't have a ton of open land in DuPage, so it wasn't a massive issue for us, but we were trying to be helpful with ISACO. That bill did pass the Senate and is on concurrence in the House. Probably certainly the most talked about in this committee in public comment bill that's moving here in veto session is what's being referred to as the assault weapons ban. Those of you who have been following, there was a version filed in the House. There were some issues in the Senate. That bill passed the House. The Senate declined to take that vehicle up and created their own bill. Initially, there was some rub, but eventually the advocates on both sides and the Speaker of the House and the Senate President have negotiated an agreement. The Senate passed that bill yesterday, and I expect the House to take that up today. So I would expect by the end of the day that bill would be going to Governor Pritzker's desk. He has committed to sign the bill as soon as he gets it. What that looks like in the future, I don't know. I imagine there'll be legal challenges all over it, but I would expect by the end of the day that piece of legislation would be on its way to Governor Pritzker's desk. So moving forward, tomorrow the new General Assembly is inaugurated. Every bill that did not pass in the 102nd General Assembly is gone, and we start fresh in the 103rd. which I'm sure has Cheryl over in the corner shaking in her boots, because it is a very, very interesting time when you have a flurry of a few thousand bills introduced. So we will be on the lookout for that immediately. Cheryl and I track every bill that's filed. We will then take a look and see what's relevant to us, and then it works its way to you folks to make a determination as to a position on that bill as it relates to the county. Notable changes in the 103rd General Assembly. I think I don't have the number off the top of my head, but there are a significant number of new members. Folks talk about term limits. I think the average tenure of a General Assembly member now is about 5 years. So a lot of new faces. They also have a pretty aggressive session schedule. Last year, if you remember, they adjourned very early. They typically adjourn May 31st. They adjourned way early because of the primary in June. This year, there's a goal to adjourn in mid-May. Whether they make it or not is, I guess, a whole different story. But that is the goal, and just a sense of like how we generally operate with bill introductions. I would argue, you look at an approved, legislative committee agenda that is approved. We probably spend about 10% of our time trying to forward that agenda, and about 90% of our time being defensive against bills that are introduced that are negative for the county. And Cheryl can attest to you, there are a ton of them. And we are a very diverse county in the areas we're involved in. So we spend a lot of time identifying problems and then, going to the members who filed them, trying to negotiate them, or committee members trying to stop them. So I would argue we spend about 90% of our time defending ourselves from attacks. And I will tell you that everyone in Springfield, by and large, thinks that the streets are paved in gold in DuPage. So we tend to have to fight that misconception most of the time as well. Just briefly to Joy's comment about that ERP bill, not giving my position, obviously, one way or another, because I work for you, but just to give everyone some purview, and especially those of you that are new, that is a massive piece of legislation that has every advocate from every side of this, for, against, wherever at the table, kind of working through concepts. And it's difficult sometimes to decide where you're at on something you haven't seen language for yet. But that is just kind of the way the process works, where everyone has their wish list of everything they want and everybody negotiates it down to kind of an agreeable middle ground. So she's been doing great work on that. She's got about a year into it. So I would expect that to continue. And at some point when it starts to, the rubber will meet the road and there's something to actually look at, you all will have an opportunity to take a look and digest it and then determine what's acceptable and what's not. So that is a little bit of my brief update. I'm more than happy to take anybody's questions. Also, feel free to reach out to Cheryl. I know sometimes, you see things or constituents call you and you have a question about the process or whatever. Feel free to reach out to Cheryl. She can connect you with me if she can't answer the question. And then lastly, you all have a unique opportunity to help the county succeed in the fact that all of you have relationships with your local elected officials. I just urge you to continue those and keep them in the loop. I obviously talk to them all a lot, but you have personal relationships with your senators and your reps. I mean, those are very valuable, and I promise you they want to hear your opinion on things. So I tried to be a little brief there. Thanks everyone for your indulgence. Madam Chair, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Chip. I think the most important question is, did you get to meet Bruno Mars last night?
I did not get to meet him. I did make my charitable contribution and attend the event. And I will say, regardless of your political affiliation, Governor Pritzker knows how to throw a party. Bruno Mars was there, but there was a band first and then a band after Bruno Mars. So it was quite the spectacle.
Questions for Chip? I think everybody's getting hungry. It's been a long morning. Chip, thank you so much. And we look forward to having you back at future meetings.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
I forward as well. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, he forwards the reports. Thanks, Chip. Okay. So, any other questions or comments about the? Everybody wants to get out of here, right? I'm starving. Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve this general umbrella So let's take a roll call.
And we're gonna add a paragraph on
And we're
tourism
gonna add a paragraph on tourism.
that I'll send to everybody.
Perfect. Well, the final will be in the board packet, right, approve it, county board. Yeah.
You can make all my corrections too, right?
No.
How about mine?
I keep waiting for you to leave so I can make or.
That's what I did. You can't say somebody to talk to.
Don't you have to go? Don't you have to go? Okay. The roll call, vote, please.
Member Chaplin,
Aye.
member Childress,
Yes.
Chair Desart,
Yes.
member Eckhoff,
No.
member Gillespie,
Yes.
member Zay.
Yes. I,
So that passes. Thank you very much. Do we have any old business?
I am.
Okay, seeing none, do we have any new business? Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you so much.